Up close tonight, the meltdown of a Hollywood fortune and a question, who's to blame? Turns out that Nicolas Cage, the Academy Award-winning actor who's played his share of troubled characters, is facing a real-life personal crisis. The news is striking because Cage is successful. He works steadily, earns millions of dollars a year, but he also owes the IRS millions in back taxes. So how did his finances become such a mess? Randy Kay.
Nicolas Cage earned $40 million in just 1 year. So why is he crying poor? Cage blames his longtime business manager for allegedly mismanaging his money. A lawsuit filed by Cage last month against Samuel Levin claims Levin, quote, lined his pockets with several $1,000,000 in business management fees while sending Cage down a path toward financial ruin, and that Cage is now, quote, forced to sell major assets and investments at a significant loss because of Levin's incompetence, misrepresentations, and recklessness. The actor owes Uncle Sam more than $6 million in back taxes because, he says, Levin never filed his taxes. Here's what Cage claims Levin did, or should I say didn't do. According to the lawsuit, Levin was supposed to provide accurate accounting statements, prepare and file income taxes, and analyze the risk of potential investments in exchange for 5% of Cage's gross earnings. Instead, the actor is accusing Levin of, quote, gross mismanagement of his affairs, which resulted in significant monetary loss. The 45-year-old Cage, who won an Oscar for his role in Leaving Las Vegas, is suing Levin for at least $20 million, claiming professional negligence and breach of fiduciary duty. Levin did not return our calls for comment. To free up cash, Cage, who is married to a former waitress and has a son with her, is unloading a handful of his homes around the country. On the market, this home in Bel Air for about $10 million, this one in Las Vegas for the same price. His home in New Orleans for about $3.5 million, and this in Rhode Island, a 24,000 square foot mansion with ocean views on 26 acres. List price, $12 million. He already sold this Bavarian castle in Germany for $2.5 million. Does Cage have a case, or should he have kept a closer eye on his own money?
We are always all individually responsible for our own taxes. That's an obligation that can't be delegated to an accountant or to a business manager. When you sign your 1040 on the dotted line, you are responsible. And so Nick Cage is going to be responsible for his tax liability. The lawsuit says Cage hired Levin in 2001, but that he first learned he was in dire straits after he replaced him in September 2008. With more than 50 films in the last 2 decades and half a dozen more slated to be released in the next 2 years, Cage is a tireless actor. Good thing it pays the bills. Randy Kay, CNN, New York.
Well, I should point out, with millions of Americans out of work, a lot of people are going to find it hard to sympathize with a Hollywood star who loses track of his tax payments and his multi-million-dollar fortune. That said, are there lessons for all of us in this story? Joining me, Evan Bell, who served as business manager for many celebrities, also CNN legal analyst Lisa Bloom. I mean, Evan, someone on the face of it sees this and says, how could this happen? I mean, is it that hard to keep track of that much money?
The answer is that it's really Nicolas Cage's responsibility. It's not his fault that his business manager didn't treat him properly, but it is his responsibility to review it and be involved.
Do business managers usually get 5% when they work on a commission like that?
That's industry standard, yes,
really?
5%.
And I mean, how hard is it to keep track of, I mean, how easy is it for a business manager if they wanted to, you know, squander money to do that, or to line their pockets and not tell their client what's going on?
I wouldn't know because I've never tried.
Which is a good thing.
Having said that, our industry really has to be held to a higher standard. Nicolas Cage didn't have to approve every check. He didn't have to be aware of every stock trade in his portfolio. He didn't have to understand every tax deduction. But his responsibility was to make sure that his net worth was growing. And that's a pretty simple thing to do. On a regular basis, his job, his responsibility was to make sure that his asset base was growing. With his earnings and his asset base, his net worth should have been growing regularly and dramatically. And if it wasn't, he had to find out why. That was his responsibility.
Lisa, Randy just laid out, you know, the allegations against the former business manager by Cage. How hard is something like this to prove?
Not necessarily hard. I assume there are a lot of documents. There are bank records, checks, credit card statements, and so forth. They're going to document everything. Of course, we don't know what the defense is. Ordinarily, a financial advisor to a very wealthy person like Nicolas Cage is going to have the client sign a lot of documents, including what his tolerance for risk is. I mean, we don't know, for example, if Nick Cage wanted to have high-risk investments, which would also mean that you have a high risk of loss, which is what could have happened in the last year. So we just don't know how much was authorized by Nick Cage and how much was completely beyond what he wanted from this financial advisor.
Evan, our viewers have been texting and writing in questions. I want to go to a text 360 questions from Anne in New York City. She writes, does being in debt affect Nicolas Cage's Hollywood career?
Well, I don't think it affects it from a creative point of view, but it might affect it in him taking the jobs that he wouldn't take otherwise because he needs the money.
Right. But he certainly has, I mean, he has future earning power. So in that way, I mean, there is light at the end of the tunnel for him if he's able to resolve these immediate problems. As long as he still stays employable, he'll have a steady source of income.
And as long as he watches his money. This could happen again. I mean, it's his responsibility to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Lisa, you say with the amount of taxes that Cage owes, over $6 million, you may expect criminal charges.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a huge amount of taxes. The IRS does not take kindly to people not paying their taxes. I wonder, in fact, if this entire lawsuit is being done to try to protect Nicolas Cage from some kind of criminal or civil liability of the IRS coming after him so that he could say later on, look, it's not my fault. I had already filed this lawsuit. Perhaps he's working out something with the IRS behind the scenes for $6 million. But remember Wesley Snipes, the IRS does not take kindly to people not paying their taxes, even if they're a major celebrity.
But can they say, Lisa, well, look, this guy defrauded me?
Everyone is responsible for their own taxes. And there's a picture of Wesley Snipes now, who also tried to blame someone else. Leona Helmsley had a similar problem. At the end of the day, when we sign those forms, we are responsible. Now, if it was simply a ministerial act, as apparently he's claiming now, that I thought the accountant was going to file it on my behalf, he was going to mail it off on my behalf, and he didn't do that, he's in a better position than simply saying that I claimed deductions I wasn't entitled to or something of that nature.
So, Evan, what's the lesson for folks at home who obviously don't have this kind of money, but still, I mean, it's know what you're spending, know what anyone you've signed over rights to, know what they're doing.
Absolutely, and I think Ronald Reagan said, "Trust but verify." He could have trusted Samuel Levin to the end of the earth, but he should have verified. That was his job.
Was it wise to have one person with that much control? I mean, you would think he would also have an attorney or perhaps an accountant or somebody also kind of checking the books.
Well, business managers are accountants, ordinarily. I think that Samuel Levin was also a CPA, as I am, and we take care of that. But ordinarily, most of our clients have a manager, they have an agent, they have a lawyer, and we're all working in tandem, and everybody's looking over everybody's shoulders. Yeah. So I'm very surprised that nobody else picked this up earlier.
Evan Bell, I appreciate your expertise. Thanks for being on. Lisa Bloom as well. Thanks, Lisa.